One of the things that makes America great is the historical significance and unique charm you'll find in her small towns. Well, award-winning author Anita Higman has captured a bit of that nostalgia, along with romance, faith, and fun, with Love Finds You in Humble, Texas. And Anita, we're glad that you could be with us today. And the story is wonderful, but you also have a fantastic story. You came to Christ as a young girl and have always wanted to write. But you said that when you began to do it, you were horrible at it.
I was really bad at it. I wrote a novel, or tried to, as a young girl, and about a Martian coming to New York City to go to a university, and I read it back.
I think they made a movie out of that.
I've seen that story.
And it was so terrible. I thought, well, I think I'm just going to have to give up on this. No one told me that you have to practice like the piano or the violin and everything else that you have to practice in life to get better at it. And I wasn't really that encouraged growing up, and so I put the dream on a shelf for a really long time. And it wasn't until I was about 29 or 30 that I dusted the dream off and I said, okay, God, I think you want me to write, and I'm going to do it whether I fail or not. And I did a lot of failing, toward success. So
what made you decide to take that dream off of the shelf?
Well, I was reading the novel in the bedroom, and I remember it was a really dramatic crossroads kind of moment where I thought, I think I can do this. I finally got the confidence to do it, the calling, and I screamed from the bedroom to my husband, and I said, I think I can do this. And so I never turned back, and so I have been writing ever since.
Did you, when you had that big aha moment, which is pretty amazing and awesome, did you just start right into writing, or did you kind of go to some writers' workshops and guilds and kind of get your feet wet a little bit?
That's a good question.
On some smaller projects?
Yes, I did. I started with poetry, I started with one-act plays, I started with a lot of different kinds of things to try to find my voice in the genre that I would be best at. And it is a long journey. You go to writers' conferences, you meet with writers and editors, you read lots of books, the how-to books on the craft, and you do a lot of practicing. I go right back to the practice. A lot of reading and a lot of writing to be able to write.
Right, and it has been a very great journey for you. God has opened up some wonderful doors for you. And now you're writing on finding love in Humble, Texas.
Yes.
So what made you decide, first of all, to kind of set it in a very small town setting?
Well, in some cases, my publisher, Summerside Press, would choose the town, and sometimes the author would, because there's other authors writing this line of books of Love Finds You. But this happened to be on their list, and it was a perfect fit because the town is 40 minutes from my house, so I was able to drive there and do research very easily, and it worked out very well.
Now, it seems like, as we were discussing a little bit earlier before coming out on the set, that it's doing very, very well. What do you find that its success is? I mean, or do you think people are just kind of looking for those kind of simpler times or that bit of nostalgia?
I think that's true, and people in America are so enamored with the small town life, quaint towns across America, and that's what this is quaint sounding towns, and they're all real towns across America, and so there'll be romantic stories set in these towns, and they have been very well received.
How effectively does the topic of faith, or the essentials of faith, translate or communicate through the pages of a storyline?
Oh, it does very well. At least I hope so. I'll leave that up to the readers. But that's always my hope, is that my books are not only entertaining, but when you're finished with the last page, you feel very uplifted, perhaps challenged a little bit, and that you know the hope and beauty and love of Christ.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit about the story.
Well, just to put it in a nutshell, it's two sisters who love each other very much and who happen to fall in love with the same man. And so that makes for a lot of trouble. And I wanted to have some conflict that would really be, sustainable all the way to the end, and it does. At least I hope so. Once again, I'll leave that to the reader to decide.
Do you find you putting your own experiences and you telling your story in one way, shape, or form?
Oh, very much so. In fact, if I run an errand for the day, if something odd happens, sometimes that oddity will end up in the book later that afternoon if I'm working on the manuscript. So all of life feeds into this. People that I've met, experiences, everything.
Right. What are some of the spiritual themes that are in the story?
Well, I hope that, just the basic love of Christ, but also that He can change any really rough situation, no matter how bleak it looks, no matter how impossible it looks, that Christ can turn that all around. He can take 1,000 broken pieces and make a beautiful picture out of it.
Have you based the main characters in the book on anyone you might know?
Oh, now that's a fun question. I like this one. I have a friend who's an image coach. And so one of the characters, I thought, wouldn't it be fun, what if you had an image coach character, and then you had another character, say the sister, who was really needed an image coach, and who was really just the opposite. It would be fun to have two sisters who would be very different, because I think that's kind of real life sometimes. And so that's what started it, was having a friend who was an image coach. And
that's funny. Now, one of the things you also said is that you've written several books and many different genres of book, but this happens to be your favorite. Why is this particular genre your favorite one?
Well, life is full of love and romance, and so I think it's something people love to read about. They love to read love stories with a happy ending.
I would imagine that you don't set out at the beginning to define, okay, this is what I want to happen in the people. I'm reading this purpose and goals here of putting this together, but it's more of a storytelling format. But what are some of your expectations with respect to, what you're hoping people would receive from and how they would be helped or ministered to through the story of Love Finds You?
Well, once again, I sort of have a little bit of an arc from the beginning to the end, because she feels her life is just all these broken pieces, and she doesn't really know how God could ever work these things out for good. But in the end, He does. And there are many times in the book where it seems that all is impossible, that nothing could turn things around. But in the end, God manages to do that in the story. And so I hope that people really will see that, because even at the most hurtful and painful moments, the most impossible moments of our lives really are in the hands of God.
Right.
And it can all be turned around.
Now, you mentioned this particular town, Humboldt, Texas, is not very far from where you live right now. And we also mentioned a bit, about this whole Americana, the nostalgia. What did you discover when you went to the small town as you were doing some of your research?
Oh, another good question. I met a woman at the Chamber of Commerce there who was so wonderful. I'm sure she would love for me to mention her name. Her name is Carolyn McCarty. And she drove me around the town. And she answered all my questions, told me the history of the town, and we have become fast friends, and I believe lifelong friends. And so those are the kinds of things that happen to you in small town America.
Right.
You feel like you're coming home, and you can make lifelong friends there.
Right, that's great. What's next on the horizon for you?
Well, next year there'll be a Christmas book, and it will be Love Finds You and Noel, Missouri. And actually, the town's name is pronounced Noel, just as this one is not pronounced Humble. It's pronounced Humble. That one's pronounced Noel. But it's also can be kind of a Christmas town, and so it will be a Christmas book next year.
Oh.
But these are all written, once again, by different authors.
Right.
I just happen to be
Right.
one of them.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming and telling us all about Humboldt, Texas. Love Finds You in Humboldt, Texas. And I can't wait to read the other one. I love Christmas. I'm a big Christmas person, so that's going to be a good one. Well, guys, if you'd like to connect with Anita, you can visit us at harvest-tv.com. Click on Show Info in the menu bar, and you'll find an easy way to link to her website. Stay with us. We'll be right back.